boys and girls, and welcome to your online class of biology. Students, this is your 7th class of biology, and in continuance with the last class, today we are going to study the final portion of the post-fertilization process, which takes place if the fertilization is successful. You have already studied in your last class that if the fertilization process is successful, it leads to the further embryonic development after the formation of the zygote. The average duration which is taken by this embryo to develop completely inside the mother's womb is known as the gestation period. In case of human beings, these gestation periods last for 9 months in approx. So you can say that gestation period is the time, or you can say the average duration in which the zygote is completely developed, or you can say transformed or into a fetus. So this 9 months is the time period which is required for the zygote to convert into the fetus. Once the fetus is completely formed and completely developed inside the mother's womb, now it's time to expel this fetus outside the body. And the process by which the pregnancy ends, or the baby is expelled or delivered, or the fetus is delivered, is known as parturition. In simple words, you can say that the delivery of the fetus is known as parturition, or in one word you can say the childbirth is known as parturition. Next, parturition is induced by a complex neuroendocrine mechanism. So you can say that the process of parturition or the process of childbirth is quite complex process and is regulated by both the neural signals and the endocrine signals. The endocrine glands which mainly takes part in this process are the pituitary gland and the ovaries. In parturition, what happens is that after the complete development of the fetus, at the end of the 9 months, the fetus itself start inducing mild uterine contractions. These mild uterine contractions, which are induced by the fetus itself after its complete development, is known as fetal ejection reflex. So it is the reflex, or you can say the contraction, which is induced by the fetal itself to go outside the body of its mother. Now this fetal ejection reflex then triggers the production of oxytocin. This oxytocin hormone is very important for this process, because this oxytocin then triggers much stronger muscular contractions in the uterine wall. You should know that this oxytocin is produced by the pituitary gland from its neurohypophyseal region. When this oxytocin is released, the increased amount of oxytocin results in stronger uterine muscular contractions. Let me tell you one more thing, that you already know that uterus has, or you can say the uterine wall has 3 layers: the endometrium, the perimetrium, and the myometrium layer. The uterine muscular contractions which are triggered by oxytocin occurs mainly in the myometrium region. So you can also say that the contractions in the myometrium region results in the expulsion of the fetus. So when the amount of the oxytocin increases, the muscular contractions also increases, it becomes more stronger and stronger, and finally it leads through the expulsion of the fetus through the birth canal. Right after the parturition occurs, that is right after the delivery of the child occurs, the first thing which is fed to the newborn baby or the infant is the mother's milk. And you already know that being mammal, the human beings have, or you can say the human females have well developed mammary glands. But these mammary glands are incapable of producing milk in normal time, but they undergo differentiation during the process of pregnancy. In other words, you can also say that once the fertilization process is successful and starts the pregnancy process, or you can say initiates pregnancy in a female, the mammary glands also simultaneously start undergoing differentiation in order to prepare itself to produce milk after the pregnancy ends. So when the baby is delivered, it starts producing milk. This process is known as lactation. And you must know that the first milk which is produced by the mammary glands of female is known as colostrum. This colostrum is comparatively yellowish and thicker in appearance in comparison to the milk produced in the later stage or later period of their after the pregnancy. But the first milk which is produced, or the colostrum which is produced just after the birth of the child, is a bit thick and yellowish in color, and it contains all the important antibodies and proteins which are required for the growth of the child. So in a way, you can also say that this colostrum is the best food to be provided to the newborn baby for its growth. So this was all about the process which takes place if the fertilization is successful. But in the last class, we have already discussed that the fate of the post-fertilization process are of two types. We have already completed the fate if the fertilization occurs. But what about if the fertilization process does not occur? Then it leads to menstruation. So today we are going to study the menstruation process. Now what is menstruation? Menstruation basically is the tearing up of the uterine wall tissues and coming out in the form of blood along with the degenerated ova or follicle. Actually, you must know that if the fertilization process is not successful, the Graafian follicle starts degenerating itself, and then at one time at the end of the cycle, which we will study after some time, it comes out along with the uterine wall in the form of blood. This is menstruation. The starting of the menstruation, that is the menstruation process when first observed in a female, is known as menarche. Menarche actually occurs at puberty. You can also say that onset of menarche or onset of the puberty remarks the sexual or reproductive capability of a female. So when the menstruation process first starts in a female, it is known as menarche, and when stops completely is known as menopause. So you can say that after menopause, a female cannot give birth to a child. Okay. Now we will study about the menstruation process in details, for which we need to follow this picture. Now listen carefully. This entire process which occurs if in a female is basically a rhythmic cycle which takes place after every 30 days. So you can say that the events related to fertilization, whether it is successful or not, is completely depending on a cycle which takes place in the female body. And the duration of this cycle is of 29 to 30 on in average 35 days approximately in a female. So from the first to 15th day, okay, as you can see here, from the first to 15th day of the cycle is known as the follicular phase. Okay, follicular phase or proliferative phase. The events which basically take place in this till this 15th day is the development of the follicle. You have already studied the process of the development of the follicle during the oogenesis process, that what are the stages which takes place, the formation of the primary follicle, the formation of the secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, then Graafian follicle. Okay, so till the Graafian follicle is formed, that phase of the cycle is known as the proliferative phase. Okay, one more thing which you should know is that this entire process takes place like that till the growth of or formation of the Graafian follicle. This entire process takes place in the ovary itself. On the 15th day approximately, the ovulation takes place. That is, the ova, as you can see here, is released from the ovary and then is passed on to the oviduct. Now, if the fertilization does not occur, this Graafian follicle or the ova starts degenerating and develops another follicle which is known as corpus luteum. So you can say corpus luteum is actually a degenerated Graafian follicle. Once the corpus luteum is formed, the fertilization process cannot take place at all. Or you can also say that fertilization does not occur, that's why a corpus luteum is formed. Okay. So again I am telling that till the 15th day of the cycle, which is known as the proliferative phase, the follicles form inside the ovary. Then it is released by the follicle, which is known as ovulation. And if the fertilization does not occur, they start forming a corpus luteum. The formation of the corpus luteum is the initiation of the second phase, which is known as the secretory phase. Not secretory, it is secretory phase, and also known as the luteal phase. Okay. At the end of this luteal phase, that is around 25th or 27th day of the cycle, the corpus luteum starts regressing or degenerating. At the end of the luteal phase, that is around 29th day or 30th day, this corpus luteum, or you can say the degenerated corpus luteum, starts coming out of the uterus. Now when it comes out, it also takes along the uterine bed which is formed for the implantation of the baby. So you can see here, when the follicle was growing in the ovary, at that time the uterine wall was also preparing itself for the implantation process. It was forming a bed for the implantation of process. Once the corpus luteum starts regressing, this uterine tissues also starts tearing up. And by the end of the 30th day, this corpus luteum, the degenerated corpus luteum, along with this torn up uterine wall tissues, come out from the vaginal tract in the form of a blood flow which is known as menstruation. This menstruation stays in females for approximately 3 to 6 days in average, you can say. Once the menstrual flow stops or menses stops, again it triggers the onset of the second cycle. Again the first day starts and again a new follicle starts developing. This entire cycle or this 30-day cycle is known as the menstrual cycle. Okay. Again I must tell you that if after the ovulation on the 15th day, if the fertilization occurs, then this process will not continue. It will lead to the formation of zygote and the menstruation cycle will stop. So from here you can also conclude that the menstruation does not occur for the 9 months during pregnancy. Alright, the menstruation only occurs if the fertilization fails and the zygote does not form. Next, we must see the hormonal control during this time period. During the proliferative stage, you can see that the level of progesterone is minimal, but the estrogen level takes a peak during the ovulation process. So from this graph, you can conclude that the level of the estrogen initiates the ovulation process. Again, in the secretory phase, in the luteal phase, both the high level of estrogen and progesterone are required for the regression of the corpus luteum. So you may say that the regression or degeneration of corpus luteum is triggered by the higher levels of both progesterone and estrogen hormones. On the other hand, if you see the pituitary hormone levels, luteinizing hormone is triggered the most, or it you can say the higher levels of luteinizing hormones are required for the ovulation process, and also the higher levels of follicle stimulating hormone are required, because both these hormones actually control the production of estrogen and progesterone and the formation of the follicle. Okay, so this was the hormonal control, and this was the entire process of menstrual cycle. With this, we finally finish this chapter of human reproduction. I hope you have understood whatever I have said. In the next class, we will start a new chapter. That's all for today. Thank you.